Thank you. Welcome everyone to the the June 20th regularly scheduled meeting of the Wareham School Committee. If we could just rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just have to make an announcement that we're being recorded by WCTV, and Ms. Ruiz is making an audio recording, and if anyone in the audience is recording, you just need to let the chair know. Let's see. We don't have Mrs. Bakayaki with us tonight. Her father passed away recently. So if you don't mind, we'd do a little moment of silence. Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak for public comment? Seeing none. Good news. Anyone? Dr. Shaverhood?
School's out. And we are now into our summer work. Care will be starting after the 4th of July, I think. And if you have questions, please check our website. But we're excited for a great summer.
Anyone else? Okay. Mrs. Bakayaki couldn't be here tonight, but she wanted to. She asked me to. If she were here, she would have said this quote herself. But she wanted me to read this quote into the record, and it was something that really moved her during the graduation. This is a quote from Reniana Dillon, who spoke at the graduation, and this is Reniana's words, and then I'll follow with Joyce's words. Reniana said, "Speaking of battles, our community has fought a fight of our own. Whether you're part of the DECA program, or you're a Wareham athlete in football, basketball, hockey, baseball, track, softball, field hockey, soccer, or tennis, or even a teacher or a member of the community. You've heard the chatter of the people who have stereotyped our school, town, and community. Wareham is unique because as diverse as we are, we support each other no matter what. We lift each other up in the face of adversity. And as corny as that sounds, we understand as a town how much potential we have and that we are continuing to grow and improve," which I thought was a great quote too. And Joyce also wanted to add, she said, "I wanted to acknowledge that our high school valedictorian recognized the stereotype placed not just on the students in our schools, but our whole community. This broke my heart and just made me want to work harder with our own school community and with the community of Wareham to take that stereotype away. Our elementary, middle, and high schools are filled with administration, teachers, and staff who work very hard every single day to ensure the success of all our students, and their efforts and success should be celebrated. High five to Reniana for calling out those who have any doubt."
Just like to add that Reniana is going to Harvard, so for anyone watching at home that doesn't think that Ivy League is possible in Wareham, that it is.
You may, yeah. Yep, absolutely. Let's see, report of the student representative who is not able to join us tonight. If she were here, I would give this to her. This is just in recognition of her being for the student representative for this 2018-19 school year, and what a pleasure it's been to have her here. Okay. So we're moving on to the minutes of the meeting, May 23rd, 2019. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second it.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 4-0-0. Excuse me. Elementary formative data, 2018 to 2019.
For
Oh, shoot. Okay, you're right. Request for 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. in 2020.
If I can, just for the record, Reniana is the only person in the South Coast Conference going to Harvard, so that's huge for
That is huge.
for her and for the district. So I've got Indiana Troop, the 8th grade class president, soon to be freshman class president, who attended the 8th grade trip. So we'd like to give a little recap of the 8th grade trip to Washington, and then ask for your permission to do it again in 2020. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to Indy here and have him talk about some of the highlights of the trip for him. I know he had a great time. We did survey all the students, and we got a tremendous amount of feedback on the trip. And we actually tweaked next year's agenda based on a lot of that feedback. So I'm going to turn it over to Indy, if you wouldn't mind talking about the trip a little bit.
Yeah, so the trip was it was packed to the brim. I mean, we woke up at, 8 in the morning?
Well,
and
before then,
yeah, left at 8, and we were in bed around 11. So it was very packed, and everything was we did almost everything you can think about in D.C., though. Yeah, we did Ford's Theater, World War II Memorial, Lincoln Memorial. We stopped at the White House. We had a tour of the Capitol. There were so many things. Tour of Mount Vernon. We went to Arlington National Cemetery, and then to close it off, we went to the National Zoo, which was amazing. We had about 3 hours or so we could hang out with our friends and go around the zoo and explore and see what we wanted, and it was a lot of freedom for the kids, which we really enjoyed, having that freedom to kind of go off and do that. But it was an amazing trip, and we did a lot, and we got the most out of our 4 days.
Definitely. And the kids were great. We had some great chaperones, great students, and we beat them up on the first full day. And we stopped at the last memorial, and we said, "Okay, who wants to get out? Raise your hand." And like
4
five
people.
five students. And I said, okay, time to go back to the hotel room. We pushed the envelope, but we tapered it off a little bit more on the Tuesday night, and then obviously Wednesday was a morning at the zoo, and then a travel day. So we have. I did send you the itinerary. We made a couple changes based on the students' surveys. One thing that we got mixed review was on the ghost tour. Were you with me? And were you with my group?
I think
we had two groups. Indy was with the other group, and some kids liked it. The majority of the kids didn't care for it. So we're going to actually add the Spy Museum, which was under construction when we were there this trip, and it's set to open, I believe, this summer. So that's going to be an addition, and we've tweaked that a little bit, and I think it's a great agenda. The cost will be right around the same as it was last year. Which is just a little over $500, and there's incentives if people can sign up early. So we're hoping to get this information out to the 8th graders early this summer so they can sign up. Everything is done online. There's no money coming into the school district. It's all done through the travel company. We had a great experience with Explorica Travel. We're hoping to stay with that organization if you approve it tonight. We have Bob, who is our tour guide. We have him on the hook if it's approved tonight as well to be our tour guide. And they're set to use the same transportation company, which the bus driver was awesome as well. It was really a great experience. There's not a lot that we're going to change other than what I told you about with the Spy Museum. And it was just, the kids were great, and we had a blast.
April?
Can I just add that as a parent of a student that went on this trip, that the communication from the school was great. The communication from Explorica on the payments could have been a little bit more of more direct. When they have the fundraising possibility and the setting up the page was a little tricky. So maybe having a parent info night on setting that up.
Sure.
Because all of a sudden I had my surprise withdrawal 2 days before Christmas, and I was like, whoa. Sure. But other than that, it was great. My son loved the trip. I was getting tons of pictures. They were tweeting out pictures the whole time that they were there, and it seemed like everybody had a really good time. So I think for any 8th grader that it's definitely worth looking into going.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was definitely one of our big goals as a class. We wanted to use social media to get out to the parents. So me and all of our class officers there were taking pictures the whole time and uploading them for the parents, and they really enjoyed seeing what we were doing.
And we required them a few days after they got back they had to create a slide presentation to tie in what they've learned into the curriculum. So I thought that was a great piece as well.
Ms. Morgan?
So how many students were able to participate?
We had 40, I believe it was 44 students that participated, and we got the word out real late. We didn't get the word out until the fall, so I'm hoping by being here tonight and hopefully getting the approval, we can get that word out and give the students and the families an opportunity to save for this trip.
And how many are in the class altogether?
Roughly 160 would be in the class, so we're hoping to get 80. That's our goal for this year. I want to get 2 buses going, and hopefully we can continue to build on this. There was an 18-year period where this trip didn't occur, and so we really want to keep it going. It was always a tradition. You talk to students that are in their 30s and 40s that grew up here and went to Wareham. They talk about the trip, and unfortunately with 9/11, there was kind of a moratorium on the trip, so to speak. So we hope to get it. I'd love to see every 8th grader go, and for the cost, I think it's reasonable for 4 days.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
No?
How many people can you accommodate? Like, you want 80, but could you?
We could accommodate 160, and that would be a good problem to have. I think as we can get this out, and hopefully next year I can get out even earlier, when we give the students time, there's a page, as Ms. Rossi mentioned, where family members can contribute. So maybe it's a birthday, instead of giving the kid, a video game, they put the, $60 or $70 towards the student's trip. And then Indy and the 8th graders did an awesome job fundraising. And again, it was our first year, so we're still learning on the fundraising piece. But, the students got money taken off their trip for fundraising. So I know there's a few students that actually had, $100 or so taken off the trip. So that's substantial. But again, if we can get this out there soon to the 8th graders, they have, almost 9 months to plan.
And I forget, is this exclusively just for 8th graders?
Exclusively for 8th grade students only.
All right. And it does not occur during a vacation week, correct? Okay. No, it looks great. I'd like to go. I'm serious. But you mentioned last time you did it in the fall. You got the word out in the fall, and I see the correspondence here that you were concerned that we didn't have it on the previous agenda or something like that. So this is good. We're getting it out this early still.
We appreciate being on the agenda. It's it's another last year. With everything going on, we had to get our ducks in a row with scheduling and staffing and all that. So now that we know the 8th graders are with us, we don't have to deal with those pieces, so we're trying to get this out early, and like I said, hopefully next year I'll be in front of you in the spring.
Yeah, okay. So you're looking for a vote?
We are.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the 8th grade trip?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Passes 4-0-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just one question
Sure.
came to mind. What did the other students do while the students were in Washington?
Sure. They still had classes. So what we did was we took the 8th grade advisor, who also is an 8th grade math teacher, and all of the rest of the 8th grade teachers stayed behind. So they had classes as scheduled.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, now, on to the elementary formative data, 2018-19, Principal Siemens and Ms. Chandler.
And if you just nod to me when you want the slide, I'll click it.
Okay.
Okay. Oh.
Good evening, school committee.
Welcome.
Tonight, Ms. Siemens, Ms. Russo, and I are going to be presenting our formative DRA, F&P and growth for 2018-2019 and our spring results. Oh, sorry. I apologize. Can you hear me now? We want to just thank you for having us here tonight to report on these results. Before beginning, I just want to say thank you to Lindsay Wolf, Joanne Gibbs, and Sarah Russo at Deacon's School who helped gather the data you will see here tonight. Also, a huge thanks to Dr. Andrea Schwam for who continues to work with us and support us and review and and talk data to us all the time. So we appreciate that. As a matter of fact, the first few slides are from Dr. Schwam in her presentation in January. Ms. Siemens and I thought it was very important to reiterate these facts, as you see here tonight. So in January, for those of you who didn't see these slides before, Dr. Schwam presented fact number 1. Up to 70% of children in high poverty schools are below basic. Wareham Public School kindergarten has been between 50 and 60% below the norm since we began FAST assessments in 2014. The problem is preventable if we begin with pre-K and 1 and use research-based instruction. Fact 2, the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development characterizes reading difficulties as a major public health concern because more students drop out, are delinquent, experience unplanned pregnancy, and chronically are underemployed. This contributes to generational poverty. So it's a cycle that we here at Wareham are trying to stop. Poor readers at the end of grade 1 are significantly at risk for long-term academic difficulty. For example, there is an 88% probability that those grade 1 students will also be poor readers in grade 4. So we're trying to stop the phenomenon. Fact 4, learning to read requires the use of the whole brain. Learning to read is a science. Reading requires use of auditory, visual, motor, and primitive reflexes. Fact number 5, good growth is not enough for students who are falling behind. Accelerated rates of growth, and you'll see that tonight, are essential. This means that those students need 3 times more repetition than the average readers do to achieve. Proficient readers depend on phonological awareness, letter sounds, fluency, using phonics to decode word meaning, and constructing meaning. Our Wareham Public students are below the norm in K. And there's an article, according to Fielding, Kerr, and Rosier, in order to catch up, we need to provide at least 90 minutes of core instruction daily. 30 minutes additionally 3 times a week for those below the 50th percentile, 60 minutes of content with reading enhancements, and 60 minutes of homework twice a week. And our challenge number 2, balancing all other elements, including math, science, social studies, and emotional health. Having a large number of students that need support, and having the necessary support to reach our students, and the time required to provide our students with a competitive advantage. How do we choose our priorities when asked to do so much? And challenge 3, changing current practices in literacy instruction. Some practices are unfamiliar. Flexible grouping students and establishing trust, understanding the data, relying on data to make decisions and inform instruction, and social emotional concerns. And here, Dr. Schwam went into speaking about Carrie Thurston's work and the research that has been done there, and how she's working as a consultant and looking at our data and giving us feedback and working on the formative groups, giving us all of the academic initiatives and ideas that we're putting forth into the classrooms. These are the results from Deacon's School. This is the FAST growth data from measuring from fall to spring. Are there questions on this? Mike?
Well, I actually had a question on a previous slide. Try the one before, maybe. The one with the challenges. So the slide reads WPS students are below the norm in K, kindergarten, right?
Mm-hmm. In past.
Oh, okay, but it mentioned,
When they enter, they're below.
and under challenge one, it mentioned 60 minutes of homework. Is that for kindergarten students?
I would encourage it. And when we mean homework, we mean parents reading to children.
Okay.
Um, Our kindergarten teachers provide an array, because I was a kindergarten parent as well, so I got to see it firsthand. They provide an array of activities for parents to work on with their children, from sight word flashcards to recommended books to work on the websites. We have these sites
Yeah.
that we use, so, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, my wife did that all the time, just in the car, whenever, just always quizzing them, you know? But,
And the great thing about parents, like, the great thing about being a primary school parent is you can still do the homework with them. Because my 16-year-old and I can't help you, Brooke, I don't know. But, yes.
So that whole challenge one, then, I mean, this is familiar. I remember this, and I remember this is like the roadmap. You know, this is so. Where are we now on that? How close are we to that? 90 minutes of, you know, core instruction daily and
Oh,
such.
I think we're exceeding that.
Okay, and then the 30 minutes additionally.
Yes, and actually, Dr. Schwam just shared with me a very interesting pie chart that we're kind of looking at from Focus K2, which is one of the programs that we use in the primary grades, and they recommend literacy 120 minutes a day.
So you think we're exceeding all of these?
I think so, yes.
Because that's not the answer I think we got last. So you've added, I think.
We have to not look in isolation either.
Yeah.
You know, literacy can cross bands.
Yeah. That's great. That's real good. Oh, Ms. Rossi.
So I have a question with the at-home piece. I know that, you know, obviously there are some, you know, situations in town or in certain families where they're not getting the at-home support. Do you have any added ideas or incentives to help to keep those kids who may be the ones that are staying in that lower percentile or in that below norm because they're not getting the support at home? Do you have any ideas or options for them where they're going to, obviously, if they're getting the same amount in school, but other kids are getting more outside of school, what is your plan to help get those kids up to where they need to be?
Well, that's a great question. So I think that one area that we have worked really, really hard is outreach. It's so important. Every child has some home that they can go to, and we have a social worker now. So it is imperative, and that's part of her job, is to really outreach to all of those families to bring that home-to-school connection there. So that is something that Dr. Shaver-Hood put into place, is the social work piece. Our guidance is here. They're called the support services in our building at DECUS, and they really make every effort to reach out even to the parents and the families that are school shy, so to speak.
Can I just,
Yeah.
I'd just like to add that also Carrie's worked with CARE, some of the staff with CARE, and they're doing a lot of the strategies they're integrating those in that program as well. So Jane Fondulis, who oversees all of that, works with her staff, and the way that she's collecting data is through the literacy that we do. So everyone is in it and involved in it. So there's also that time.
What was really cool, I'm sorry, Ms. Rossi, I just wanted to,
Yep.
This year is Lindsay Wolf, she's a teacher here, and she was our department chair. She created sight word rings. It was Carrie's idea, sight word rings, and we hung them. And so the Beyond School staff, as the children came in, were practicing their sight words. And that automaticity of sight words is the foundation for being able to be a good reader, is just having those sight words down pat. Kind of like mathematics automaticity, like 4 + 2. You just know what it is, so you're able to solve the problems. Having those sight words memorized helps them be able to be fluent readers.
So my concern, like I said, wouldn't have been the students getting the extra stuff from CARE. It would have been those going straight home and not necessarily getting that extra school-sponsored support at home. That was, you had answered the question with the social worker and the support services, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Moving forward.
Yes. Okay, so these are our results from the fall to spring of fast growth. As you can see here, that the red is high risk. Those are students who are still falling short here. The yellow is having some risk. green is low risk, and blue is what FAST calls college bound. Yes.
So your potential retentions would come from the red and only the red.
May I say this too? Possibly,
All right.
yes. We try to test every student in our building. So those are also our students who have significant developmental delays
Okay.
that could be fall there. And the red is 9 students.
Okay.
So this was data from the whole year 2018 to 2019. Is
Yeah.
there a comparative data to where they started to
Yes.
where they ended?
This is their growth. So this is from where they began to how much they have grown from fall to
Is this
spring.
kind of confusing because it doesn't specify
Where they began.
where they started. It just says 6%, 8%, 58%, 20%, and I see the percentile, but it doesn't say, okay, of the red, the 6% is where they ended. What did they come in at in the red?
So when you see the DRA scores, you're going to be able to see, there's other slides there that'll be able to help you
Okay.
compare. This is just a growth of how they're doing.
Mass data, right?
Correct.
So it's not the same as DRA.
Correct.
Ready?
Just make sure you guys go through me, okay, so it's not confusing.
Okay, so this is grade 1. How much they've grown over the year, that's all you're looking at right now is, as a whole class, this is good growth. The blue is excellent growth, the green is good growth, the yellow and orangey is some growth, and the red is low growth. So the red are the students that are kind of not making the gains they need to be making.
Okay.
If that helps. And in that red, I just want to let you know, that was 12 students. Okay, that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, and finally, grade 2. This is their growth over the year.
Oh, Ms. Rossi.
So on the grade K and 1, you had a 7 and a 9, like the percentage for the red was significantly lower, and this is almost double. What would the reason be that would be double as they get older? Is it harder to get through to them? Is that what you're thinking, or is it a larger class size? Is there?
This is this is a lower class size. It is harder. The test does get substantially more difficult throughout the year too. So not only we're not measuring apples to apples, we're measuring a test that's always moving, fast is changing as they go up. So it could be the particular test as they grow.
So these tests, I mean, you're testing if kids, they start out the year not knowing the material, and then they end the year learning the material.
Correct.
Right. So I always find these really interesting, these graphs. It just shows how these younger kids are just really sponges, especially like the youngest,
And this is independent too. So grade 2 is independent. The others have monitors with them. So the grade K is done with a tester. They don't do it on their own. Like they do, you know what I mean? The grade, they're reporting it. But grade 2 is completely independent. Just a factor to think about.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
So these are new slides that we've put in here just to understand where we're coming from. And for the 2018-2019 school year, the kindergarten EOY benchmark was raised from the national average of a 3 to a 4 to a 6. This is DRA. More than half of our students met or exceeded that increased expectation. I just put in front of you a DRA chart. I know some of you are very familiar with it already, but for those of you who are not, I just need you to understand that the national DRA of a student coming out of kindergarten is a 3. In Wareham, our expectation is a 6. Half of our students got a 6 or better on the DRA.
What we like to hear.
A challenge, and last year when we reported on this, we were looking at an expectation of a DRA 4. So now we've pushed it to a 6. So what you're looking at in this DRA is their scores. The yellow is good. That's the average of a DRA 6. Orange is the national average. And those numbers are the number of students.
Anyone?
Sorry.
Rossi?
Sorry. So the orange is the national average, so that 105 on, say, September is the national average.
If those are students coming in at, the average at the time of a September kid.
Okay.
Right?
Because I'm like, it's,
No, so.
I'm sorry if it seems
No,
a
no.
little confusing.
No. But a child coming in, on average, comes in with an A or a 1, right? So that's average for a child. Understood? Yeah. And then the average for a child that's 55 is an orange in May, right? They come in at an A. See your chart right there? If they
Yep.
come in at an A, they're leaving it a 3, right? So when you look at those numbers right there, it's because students are coming in with an A, right?
Okay, so then the yellow is where we were at?
The yellow is where we are at.
Okay, so we were significantly below in September, but above in May is what the moral of the story is, based on this particular
Average.
chart. Okay.
Ms. Morgan?
So I just wanted, for my own clarification, the orange just means that our students who are meeting the national.
Correct.
So they're all our students, but they're either at the national or our expectations.
Correct.
So, and then the only other question I have is, why do you think, although it didn't grow, it's not a lot, but why do you think the red did grow?
Yeah, that's exactly. They're measuring against a 6.
Not a 4 or a 3.
Oh, really?
So you've upped the measurement from a 4 to a 6.
So a red then is greater than, right? So the red is a 2.
Wow.
See what I'm saying? So they've moved, but they're not.
It's been weighted.
Yeah, we've weighted it higher because research is now supporting the fact that if we don't get them to where they need to be, like at a 6, and then grade 1 enter at an 8, they have to get to an 18 by the end of grade 1, and that is a lot for a first grade teacher, right? So we're trying to just push it up so that we can square them away and get them to a place where they're good readers, strong
And-
readers before they move.
And not to mention that they're supposed to come in grade 1 and 4 to 6, but we have to remember there's a summer slide there. So we want to get them as high as they can go, because when they come in, there's a possibility that they will just regress a little bit due to the 8 weeks of being out of school, for those who are out of school.
Mrs. Morgan?
But you do have some coming during the summer, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. So those red students and some of the orange will be going to Boost, 18 of them.
And so is that a 28 in the green?
Correct.
So we had 28 students
Above a 6,
at an 8.
a DR 8 or above.
And 9 at a 12 or above.
Correct.
Okay.
And, on a side, I've been thinking too, it's very interesting. I have one veteran kindergarten teacher who was speaking to me before the close of business, the last day of school, and she said, we used to teach the alphabet throughout the year in kindergarten, and we don't do that anymore. She said, we were looking at the scores, she goes, this is just unbelievable, the rate of success we've had, because it was just tradition to go through and teach letter, sound recognition at a very slow pace, thinking that that would help the children really get it. And we've noticed that our students are having so much fun, working, and they are really achieving. And, my student is one of those who came in an A and left at a DRA 8. So, and he had a blast in kindergarten. So it's just really phenomenal. We're doing good work here at Deacon's, and I'm very, very proud of the teachers who put forth all of this.
Well, this is exciting.
Did I skip one? Nope.
Okay, grade 1. For the 2018-2019 school year, the first grade began the fall with a reading level expectation of a DRA 4. Remember, that was our last year's DRA. And we're expected to exit a DRA 18. This means our students had to successfully master a wide range of literacy skills to accomplish this goal. So a 4 to an 18 is a lot of steps. And this is the grade 1 results. This is the grade that has had the most accelerated growth, though, as you'll see from the next couple slides. Grade 2, for the 2018-2019 school year, 91 second grade students have met or exceeded the end of the year third grade reading benchmark of a DRA 38.
So,
Questions? So the blue, the 91, is an end of the year DRA for a third grader, and they're in second grade.
that's current second grade? Yeah. Wow, right? I mean, wow. Anyone else? Ms. Rossi?
Back on the grade 1 DRA, the
Mhm.
red significantly on May was above everything else. Can you explain?
Like I said, they have to make the most growth. Out of all the grades, grade 1 has the toughest job. They have the toughest climb. They went from a 4 to an 18. So some of the students just didn't climb as far as the 18.
Is there an average about where that red zone is? If it's not an 18, where does that fall?
It's a range from students that are, and remember, these are all students at Deacon's School. Every student, almost every student was tested. So these are students with learning disabilities, everyone. So that's a range from, I don't know, I don't have the exact range for the red. I'm trying to look, let's see. Yeah. I don't know, there is a range, Ms. Rossi, from 0 to, I don't want to quote it if it's a 6 or an 8, but.
I
Go for it.
think that also, and I think I've asked for this before too, it would be helpful to see it broken up by the subgroups,
Okay, yeah.
you know? So you know, you can sort of get a better picture of.
Gotcha.
Would that be too hard to do, or?
No,
Okay.
I think we can manage that.
Okay.
I agree.
Do you want me to answer the first grade? I have
Sure.
the
Thank you.
data. So by the expectations we have here, student has to be a 12 or above. So if they scored a 12 or under in DRA, they're in the red at that time of year.
Okay.
See, so, and then each time of year, the expectation rises. So we didn't quite get as many kids to be above a 12 than we would have, that we will eventually. But the expectation is high, and it needs to stay high, because our kids can do it.
Thank you.
Agreed.
So this is the percentage of accelerated DRA reading growth for 2018-2019. So close to 50% kindergarten students achieved accelerated growth in reading. 83%, so this is where our percentage of accelerated growth really, for grade 1, you can see they have the most to grow, and they did. The first grade students achieved accelerated growth in reading, and 60% of the second grade students achieved accelerated growth in reading. At this time, I'm going to turn over other data to Ms. Russo, who's going to talk about our special ed numbers and our discipline numbers.
Good evening, school committee. My name is Sarah Russo. I'm assistant principal at DECUS. We did just a comparison here by grade level for you for the number of students who are on an IEP. As you see for kindergarten, 24, first grade, 49 students, and second grade, 35 students. That gives us a total of 108 students that have an IEP in K through second grade, which makes up 20% of our population here at DECUS. With the 504s, we have 12 students with a 504.
I just want to mention that the kindergarten numbers right now for the 24 students is significantly low because I have 172 enrolled.
It's 15%, which is down 33%. So it's good.
Any questions? So, just curious, these numbers for IEPs, or do they ever come off the IEP?
Yes.
They do, yes.
Because that's great news. So in the K to 2 at DECUS, they do come. Some do come off,
Yes.
and that's obviously a mutual, agreement between everybody involved, right?
And some will never get off and some will.
Yeah,
And,
right,
and that's
right,
the way an
yeah,
IEP is.
Yeah. Thank you.
This next slide is information detailing a comparison from last year to this year for our Student Support Council. And I feel like this slide reflects a lot of the work that we've done at DECUS. This year, our teachers, and they are the ones who refer a case to the Student Support Council. This year, they've only referred 57 students. So these are students that they'd like extra help with. And we meet as a team, and we, again, pull in our social worker, our guidance counselor. We ask for our specialists to come in and speak with us to give points and strategies to help this student to be successful. As you can see from the total number of students that we referred in comparison, in 2017 to 2018, we referred 48 students for an IEP evaluation. But this year, we only referred 14 students for an evaluation. So our number has improved greatly. We actually have 31 less SSC cases, and we have a 70% reduction in students being referred for an evaluation for an IEP. So the strategies that we're using, I think, is credit for their improvement.
Mrs. Morgan?
Do you happen to have the data on how many are parent referrals?
I do. I can bring that back
That'd
to
be
you.
great.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I actually keep that also with our SSC cases. We had 2 out of the 57 SSC cases. We did have 2 parents that asked for a referral.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is our DECUS disciplinary data. As you can see, there's been a decrease in discipline referrals. This year, our total referrals were 404, and if you look at the number of suspensions, they have decreased drastically. We had 26 suspensions this year.
Ms. Rossi?
Do you think part of that drop in data is the older kids going on to Minot, or do you think that it's a change in the culture at DECUS?
Ms. Rossi, I would believe it's a change in our culture. Our children are very busy. We keep them up and active. We have a lot of things that keep them engaged. We try to find what their interests are and give them a voice to research it. And I think that's part of the decline there in the number of suspensions. We're here to support our students. We're here to make sure they're successful.
Thank you. Is there a breakdown of suspensions by grade?
Yes, I can get that for you.
Thank you.
So that drastic reduction was due to just like kids being more busy. Wow.
They're engaged. They're enjoying DECUS. They're enjoying learning.
I mean, there's a lot of factors. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that the academics have kept them going and very busy, and they're very happy. I also think that the PBIS team at DECUS has worked very, very hard to encourage a positive culture and making sure that students are recognized for their great behavior,
So
being
so
responsible, respectful, and
was
safe.
that going on last year too?
Yes, this is our third year of PBIS, so if you go, see that fidelity check right there?
I was going to ask, what is that?
A lovely man named Todd Miller, who's from PBIS, I think he's a doctor, Dr. Miller, who works for the PBIS team, comes in every year and does a fidelity check. Our first year of implementation, we had a 56% implementation rate. Last year was 83, and this year we're up to a 93%. So he does literally a checklist and gives it to us.
But what is it?
It's to check and see how we are implementing positive behavior initiatives in our school.
All right.
And so he looks at our systems of how we reward students on their positive behaviors, and we scored a 93. I'm very proud of that. But it's just a climate. It's what we do. He looks at everything. He looks at how students respond to teachers. He looks at how they walk in the hall. He's looking at what we say and do in the morning. He asks questions of the students, saying, "Hey, what is your motto?" And the students say, "I'm responsible, respectful, and safe." So he questions students. He talks to teachers. He speaks to the PBIS team. So it's
Okay.
pretty thorough.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right.
Good evening, everyone. Joan Siemens from Minot Forest. Mrs. Murphy sends her regrets for not being here this evening, but she and her husband had a trip booked, so they are on the West Coast right now. So I'm here to present the Minot Forest data. As we learned in one of the facts that Mrs. Chandler read, getting to the students at K-1 really shows the growth. So I appreciate all the work that they're doing at DECUS, because that will come up to us next year. I'm very excited to welcome these new second graders. So we looked at two different things. Now think about pre-K to 2, you're teaching the children how to read. And when you get to grades 3 and 4, we're now reading to learn. So the objectives change a little bit. We looked at accuracy, how students are reading. Are they making mistakes in their words when they're reading? So when we look at the CBM, which is one of the tests that we do for FAST, 90% of our third graders are reading accurately. So they're not making any mistakes at all in their reading. That's one of the tests that they have to do. A reading, we're looking at it from a broad perspective. This test is individual to the child. So as the student is going along and clicking their answers, if they get the answer right, the questions get more challenging for them. So it's really individually based for them. It's fill in the blank, it's multiple choice questions for them. They're being active readers, they're taking meaning from what they read, and at this level, they're focusing on vocabulary and comprehension, whereas at the lower levels, it's phonics, decoding, and so forth. So we're looking at the percent of students on track. And the goal of the broad-based reading is it's an active performance where we're looking at a variety of related skills for them. So when I look at 108 out of 157 students who are able to do this work, 49 of them are the ones that we look at as well, because they weren't proficient or above. Of those 49, 37 students are on an IEP. So we look to see where we have to place them in our groupings as we go forth. We do have high expectations for all students. So we use Functus and Pinnell. We don't do a straight DRA like they do at the younger levels. So in order to get that growth score, we're looking at the A reading test and we're looking at the CBM test. So we calculate that. It gives us a Functus and Pinnell level. It includes comprehension, vocabulary, fluency, and speed, and it gives us that number. So 62% of the third graders made typical or accelerated growth. So we were happy to see that. 45% of those students made accelerated growth as well. And the goal here for broad reading is to have 1.5 words faster every minute. So that's how they're trying to calculate accuracy and how they are doing with their growth. We did a comparison with grade 3 from the fall to the spring. So we had 175 students total that were tested. So when you look at the high risk, which is the red, we decreased that by 3%. So we went from 37 down to 33 students. For the some risk category, that increased 2%. So those students in the high risk jumped over to some risk. So that went from 8 students to 11 students. In the low risk category, we increased it by 8%. So it went from 80 students up to 93 students. And the blue, which is what they call college pathway, we did have a decrease there of 21%, but 53% of those students that were previously in the college pathway increased their score by at least 5 points. So we did see some growth, although they didn't make the accelerated growth that we needed to at that particular time of the year. And there were a few extra students that took the spring test as compared to the fall with different move-ins that we had.
Now, in your, you use F&P, you mentioned?
Fountas and Pinnell.
Are you weighting any of your scores? Like the
These are
DECA
straight
status?
scores.
Straight scores.
Do you mean are their expectations?
Are you coming in at a
Oh,
higher-
yes, sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
There are levels, and those levels move every term, every time, and there's a certain, they use letters rather than numbers. And I have that list too of where they need to be according to this chart.
Okay.
So yes, they are
Okay.
measured that way.
All right. Thank you.
So when you look at grade 4, we're very excited with this. 98% of our students are accurate in their reading when you look at the CBM. So they're reading, they're not making mistakes as they go along. And this was the group that didn't have the full CSS consulting at the beginning. They had bits of it. When we look at the A reading for them, again, looking at vocabulary and comprehension, 57% of the students are at that low risk. So they're doing what they need to be. So we know vocabulary has been an issue in grade 4, and that's something that we have to continue to work on. Let's see. We know that 32 of these students are on IEPs as well. When we look at grade 4, Fountas and Pinnell, 67% of the 4th graders made typical or accelerated growth, and 60% of those students made the accelerated growth. So they went above and beyond, they went higher. There was a total of 113 students out of 167 that made that growth. And looking at the comparison from fall to spring using the FAST, again, there were more students in the spring who were tested than in the fall. The high-risk category in the red decreased by 7%, so we went from 45 students to 33. In the some risk category, it increased by 2%, so we went from 9 students to 13. In the low risk category, it increased by 8%. We went from 99 students to 113 students. In the college pathway, there was a decrease of 3%. 6 of those students increased their scores to the scaled school of 524. College pathway begins at 526, so they just missed getting into that college pathway column. Questions on grade 4?
No. I just have a general question. So have you taken a look at how these students, say the ones that are in, you say the pathways, they're scoring on the MCAS?
So this is the first year we really, with the flexible grouping, we really targeted that group. So when we get our scores, we absolutely will be looking at that.
I'd be curious to see a comparison.
I've actually begun my analysis with the raw percentile scores, which don't really translate well. Like you can tell when kids are struggling and when they're doing really well, but the in-between is really hard to calculate because they're a percentile and they're not in the 400, 500. So I've started to create a chart that actually measures the F&P against the expectation of the F&P and where they fell with that raw percentile score. And I'm coloring them, and I'm finding it very curious because a number of kids I know currently in grade 4 have done better on MCAS than on the F&P.
That's interesting.
So it is interesting. So I'm looking at that really closely to see how we're managing
Right.
that element.
I'd be interested to hear more.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
When we look at special education, we have 45 students in third grade on an IEP. 9 of those students are in our substantially separate programs. So that's 36 students who are in inclusion or have pull-out services. In fourth grade, there are 41 students on an IEP. 7 of those students are in substantially separate programs. So 34 students are in inclusion or have pull-out services. And we have 10 students on a 504 and 9 students in fourth grade on a 504. When we look at our disciplinary data, we had 366 referrals in 2017. We do have a higher class right now as far as enrollment. We're at 368. But what we are proud of is the number of suspensions that have decreased. So we went from 56 last year to 37 this year. That's a 66% decrease in suspensions, and we know that is in part to the work that we're doing with our teachers and using our transitional support room. So if we have students who need a break because something is going wrong with their lesson, or the teacher feels that a child needs to be removed, we have a transitional support room that is staffed by a paraprofessional, and our behaviorist works very closely with that person. So we're able to remove the student, and sometimes the student just has to regroup, and then they're able to go back to class. So this has really been a great plan that we've put in place.
You first, Ms. Morgan.
You also use PBIS, don't you?
We do, yes, we do. I believe our fidelity check was 90%, and the team that we have that went to the academies, they had to rate, give themselves a 0, a 1, or a 2 on various questions. So they were pretty honest about some things. They feel that we need to have more supports for a tier 2. So, but 90% is still a pretty nice number. Yeah.
Define referral. Like, what is that?
It could be any reason why a teacher would like an administrator to speak to a student.
Okay.
They may have, there could be a variety of reasons.
All right. So,
So they may write up a slip for us to have a chat with that child.
but yeah. So the referrals go up, but the suspensions go down.
The consequences went down because we were able to get to the student and be proactive before things got out of hand.
Okay.
And again, as I said, there's more students this year than last year. So although the numbers are pretty equal, there were more students.
All right.
For our Student Support Council, there were 25 students that were referred last year. Of those 25, 9 were referred for an evaluation. This year, 13 students were referred. 6 of them were referred for an evaluation. 5 students were determined eligible for an IEP of that 9 from last year, and 4 students were determined to be eligible for an IEP based on the 6 that were referred from SSC.
Can you describe a little more about the SSC, who it is, what it does?
Yeah, so Student Support Council, it's a makeup of various staff in the building. So Mrs. Murphy runs that particular committee, and the guidance counselor is on there. We have teachers on there. The behaviorist may be on there, the social worker. Depending what the needs are that the teacher's bringing forth, she may, or he, may just be looking for suggestions. You know, it could be behavioral, it could be academic, it could be an ELA question or a math question, and they're just looking for additional ideas that they can try in their classroom. So the team will give a recommendation, the teacher goes back and tries it for about 4 to 6 weeks. They reconvene to see if those strategies worked.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Morgan.
So that brings a question back to Ms. Chandler. Sorry. So do you know how many out of yours that were evaluated qualified for an IEP?
I don't know if we have that data. We have that data, Mary. I can find that. I can get that for you and let you know after the evaluation who qualified. Yep.
Thank you.
It's a semi-related question, maybe for the superintendent. What is the schedule on when, like, the preliminary MCAS data comes out? When it's embargoed and all that good stuff.
Right, we've received some raw data now.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, we've received raw. scores for English language arts grades 3 through 10.
And it's embargoed, and it will not be released until fall.
Right. Okay, so you at least have something now. Okay.
Yes, and I think July is the last note I received was July.
Yeah, I remember there's a whole schedule, and you guys have, a certain time frame to,
Discrepancies.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Fun.
Yeah.
When we looked at our special ed referrals, in grade 3, we had 5 parents that asked for an initial evaluation. 2 of those did not qualify, 3 of them did. We had 5 staff members that referred, so there may be a child that perhaps a reevaluation was going to happen later in the year. We asked to have that moved up because of a variety of reasons. Of the 18 reevaluations, you asked Mr. Flowerty, do students come off an IEP? And a lot of times at my level, I see that because they go through their 3-year reevaluation to see if they need to continue or not. So we did have several students that came off an IEP because they met their goals and objectives.
See, that's great. See, when you say several, I mean, ballpark number.
Let's see, 4 in grade 3 came off, and 4 in grade 4 came off.
I just remember previous school committee members saying like they never come off, and that's just not true.
No?
Yeah. All right.
No.
Thank you.
So we've already made plans for next year. Moving forward, we've already met with our staff to see what worked well this year, what do we need to do for next year. So even though the year was winding down, we've already met for our planning. I appreciate the working together with middle school because our lunches and our unified arts times will be later in the day, so we can have that 90-minute block that we saw in those facts that you need. So we're appreciative of that.
Any other questions or anything? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, really good. I know Ms. Bakayaki would have loved to have commented. All right. Item number 6 on the agenda. Item 7, DESI, Comprehensive District Review.
Yes. Okay. Find my... So we were notified last summer that DESI was going to be visiting us to do a comprehensive review. The last time they visited was 2012, and we were waiting then to see when they would come. They came in December. So we just put together some slides that will just kind of give you a general overview. You have the comprehensive report, and if you have questions, we're happy to answer that. The DESI review really focuses on some standards, and so we listed the standards as well as what the definitions are. When the team visited, what they did is they focused on each standard. So they would have specific people that paid attention to leadership and governance, curriculum and instruction, assessment, human resources development, professional development, student support, financial asset, and management. And they spent 2 days prepping, 4 days on site, and then 2 days reviewing the data. And this was an independent team. This was independent consultants that are hired by DESI. They do have backgrounds in the areas that they oversee and interview. So the team, they interviewed staff, administrators, parents, school committee, town administrator, town treasurer. I believe they interviewed a board of selectmen, parents, and other folks. And they had a list of questions, and they gathered information. They also observed 93 classrooms during the visit, and there was a total of about 40 hours of interviews.
The documents, there were quite a few documents. I'll give you an example just so you can get an eye. This was just the self-assessment that we sent to DESE. This was one document. From there, there's a list here of the required documents that they asked for. So there were these, and then there were 32 other documents that came with this report that are on the computer and that they're downloaded to the DESE portal. And so the collection of these was immense and intense. And I actually redesigned the way they collected it because it didn't make a whole lot of sense. The 32 documents were not by standard. They were just thrown together. And so I made folders and I connected those documents to standards, and the folders were named by standard. The problem with the curriculum and instruction folder was that it was too big to be uploaded to the security portal. So I think there were 7 different folders in curriculum instruction that I had to split out to send. So just as an idea of the immense amount of energy that was provided. And they looked at they said that they looked at every document that was given to them. So it's a pretty big deal.
So the first one that we looked at was the leadership and governance. That was something that they met with the principals, they met with various leaders, asking how goals were set, were they followed, did we follow the action plans, and just how did we maintain the district business. The leadership teams at each school were absolutely amazing, and actually everybody involved they were amazing. The time, the amount of effort everyone contributed to this visit just spoke volumes. And that was also noted in with the interviews with DESE about they had never visited so many classrooms. And one of the reasons they were able to do that is because we helped them get to classrooms. So we changed things up a little bit on them, but in the long run, it really worked well for them.
The statements that they made as far as curriculum instruction is that we have a well-defined, inclusive process and structures and tools that support the use of high-quality, standards-aligned curriculum materials to ensure that all students have access to high-quality teaching and learning. In addition, teachers have a clear sense of content and instructional expectations and the resources available to effectively deliver the curricula. The district provides a range of rigorous and challenging academic coursework and experiences that encourage choice, address students' diverse interests, skills, and readiness levels, and ensures that all students have equitable access to high-quality, rigorous education aligned with students' ambitions and interests, and prepares them for college, career, and civic engagement. The district has established a robust and inclusive curriculum review and revision process that is informed by district needs and includes structures to support its implementation. We have so far about 190 authentic units that have been created by our staff. It's impressive. The assessment is, it's organized. It's, as you've noted, some of the assessments that have been reported out. We have formative, benchmark, summative assessments. They're collected, they're used, shared with teachers in a meaningful way, enhancing district's capacity to quickly identify students' strengths and challenges and improve teaching, learning, and decision-making. We have implemented a balanced system of assessments across all schools and grades to measure student progress and support struggling students. The results are collected, analyzed, and shared. Any questions?
I do later.
Okay. And human resources and professional development, they were pretty impressed with our evaluation system, as you, I assume, read in the report. That they indicated would give specific, timely, and actionable feedback. Our walkthroughs were impressive. The amount of walkthroughs that we went through and all of the documents that they reviewed were the actual documents that were done. And they were from a myriad of years. So it wasn't just, we didn't choose the documents. They chose who they wanted to see, and we had to give them that information. So it was just a myriad of many different teachers at different levels, some long-term teachers, some short-term teachers, so they were able to review all of that. We promote opportunities for teacher leadership by encouraging teachers to assume leadership positions. They were impressed with the department chairs and how they work within our system. They asked a lot of questions around that, and they thought that that was pretty effective. And we've definitely taken and prioritized opportunities for teachers to receive high quality feedback. So, and we continue to do that, and we will continue to grow. So I meet with the evaluators every month at the beginning of the year from September to January. We kind of front load it because then testing starts. It gets a little crazy for people to get away from their school. But we do some calibration work. We look at where we're at and how we're measuring, and we've also implemented a new professional teacher reflection document that I think will be extremely beneficial to empower our teachers to have an active role in participating in their own professional growth in the evaluation system. Student services, we've allocated staff and programmatic resources to support student needs. The amount of social workers and guidance counselors, and special education personnel have expanded greatly, and we're very concerned with, obviously, the success academically, behaviorally, socially, emotionally, and the overall well-being of all of our students. And the financial and asset management, we have a the district comprehensive and detailed capital plan, which you've all seen as a school committee, along with advocacy of district officials, has contributed to town support for annual capital improvements and a new school that will help support health and safety, which can improve all student performance opportunities and outcomes. The fact that that the new school was voted and by the community was a huge, I think, asset when they came, and that was part of what we were celebrating at the time.
Yeah.
And then with challenges in areas of growth, the district is challenged by high chronic absence and suspension rates. As you can see by our earlier presentation, we're working on the suspension rates and trying to figure out ways in which to improve the outcomes for students. And I think by hiring the social workers and guidance counselors and BCBAs and the work that we're trying to do collectively to help each and every student is actually will have great effect. Also, the work that we're doing academically for students, helping them prior to, right, identifying what might be wrong and giving them strategies to correct what might be wrong early, will also help as we move through the system. And they mentioned school choice being an issue with students choosing to leave. They also said that in observed classrooms across the district, instruction did not consistently engage students in higher order thinking, promote meaningful student discourse about content and their thinking, and ensure that students were supported and challenged regardless of their learning needs. However, the commitment toward transformation has shown impressive gains. So this I thought was really important. They looked at the same standards when they came in with they come in with this tally sheet, everyone, and they stay about 20 or 25 minutes in each classroom, and they tally up the numbers and they come up with percentages. So I took the percentages from 2012 and I averaged all the schools in each of the different standards that they were looking at. And in 2012, they had 17% of our schools' learning objectives and expectations were clear, and in 18, 90%. So that shows a huge growth. Student engagement was at 25% in 2012 and is now at 67%. The 67% is a huge contribution from the middle school. They were above 80% in every category when they went. So I'm just going to give a shout out to the middle school. And inclusive practices were at 20% in 2012 and are now at 82%. So I think it's, yes, we obviously want to keep working in that area, and we will continue to work on that as we grow. But if we compare, we're getting there.
So the recommendations really weren't a surprise to us at all. Everyone agrees that we need to continue to provide effective instruction and challenges that support all our students. We need to strengthen our efforts to improve student attendance, and we're focusing on what our discipline and how do we work with students when there is some misconduct. As well, we do know very clearly that we need to work with the town officials collaboratively, because it's Wareham. We're all in it together, and it's a collaboration. So we're working on doing a capital plan. Also, how do we respond with lower student enrollment? And how do we continue to provide our students with programs that they need to be successful? One of the little gems that they put in that we were quite pleased with was we need to be better advocates for ourselves, and we need to share what we have to offer for the students that attend our schools. They noted that we have innovative educational programs, we have student support, we have wraparound services, we have extracurricular programs that perhaps we have not done a very good job of sharing all the offerings that our students have. They noted the International Baccalaureate program, and they also noted the Global Ed program, and that they're not found in very many districts that are available to all students. So we felt good about that, but on the other hand, we know we need to do better. So I just think that, when we look at the report, it pretty much told us what we knew. But there was so much work and collaboration and group effort from Dr. Schwamp, to the principals, to the staff, to people. I know one time the interviewer said, we don't need all these people here to interview. And our answer was, but they volunteered and they want to be. And so it just showed the buy-in that everyone had with this process. And as a result, we were pretty pleased with the results. So if you have questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Ms. Rossi?
Go ahead. You can go first.
Ms. Morgan?
So just to clarify, again, I know you spoke of it a little bit, but why is it again that they only observed 70 classrooms in 2012 and 93 in 2018?
When they came, they always go to schools without any restriction, right? Mm-hmm. So they, 2 at a time, will go and they go to schools and they just go about classrooms. We insisted that they have a liaison present because first, they're not quarried by the specifications of the Wareham Public Schools policy, which is, it doesn't matter to me if they're from DESE or not, they have to follow the policy. And Dr. Shaverhood was very clear in indicating that that's part of what we do. And secondly, we felt that the person that would help them would not go to substitute. If there's a substitute in that classroom, they didn't want them there. If, you know what I mean? There are a number of, you can walk into any situation and not necessarily know what you're walking into. If they needed to see an English class, that person could take them right to an English class. If they needed a science class, they could go there. They wanted to see all the different things, and this person was there to help them and manage that. And as a result, they were able to get to more classrooms, they said, than they've ever been able to get to in any other district because the liaison helped them navigate the buildings much better and more effectively.
Like the classrooms for them.
Yes. Well, not necessarily.
They picked the people from DESI picked where they wanted to go. They said,
And then they just guided them to there. So it wasn't like they were, it wasn't like we didn't have enough, we didn't know when they were coming within that 4 days. So it's not like we could plan
Right.
whose class they went to. But if they needed an English class, the liaison knew exactly where an English class was being held at that time and could take them to that class.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Then what I also found interesting was that, which is great, that the middle school was found to have the most student engagement. And I found that interesting because the high school staff, a lot of them have been trained in IB, and you would think that they would
so
be
is the middle
seeing-
school.
Right, but I mean, high school has been longer.
No, the middle school's actually been longer.
Okay,
They started.
right, okay.
The middle years program started before the,
Before the high school?
mhm.
I must have missed that one. I didn't realize that. Okay, but anyways, it's just interesting to note that. And then another question I have, going to the executive summary, it talks about how we've had a consistent school and central office leadership in the recent years. I'm just wondering where they got that information from, because what I know is we've had 3 principals at Deacon's, 3 SPED directors, 2 food service directors, 2 business managers, 4 principals at the middle school, 2 transportation directors, and multiple APs. So I'm not sure where they thought that we were having consistent school and central office
They
leadership.
they said central
It
office.
says, it says right here, school and central office.
I do believe that they used, Mrs. Siemens has been in her role for a number of years.
I
Mr.
think-
Palladino
I
has.
think you 3 are about the only ones that have been in a stable. Oh, I know that.
Yeah.
but
And so is Tracy.
No, I understand,
And
but
then-
just not as in those roles.
Mo Manning and Jane have also been part of the central office
All right,
for a long
okay.
time.
All right. And then how about this, the staff stability? Where'd they get information on that? Because I know a lot of staff that have left, teachers that have left.
DESI.
That
Yes.
They
came from
have-
the DESI data.
Okay.
I didn't supply them with any
All right,
documentation.
just curious. Just seeing if, I mean, I'm glad to see you did point out the, the challenges and the areas of growth, which is good. And of course, there are other, great things, obviously, that you mentioned. And you know what? I really liked their format of this report better than the 2012 because it was much better, easier to navigate. The other one was just, didn't separate. It didn't separate areas of growth or challenges. You really had to dig through it. So I definitely like the change in that. I think that's about it for now. I might think of something after you guys go.
Ms. Rossi?
So in reading over the report, I think it is great that they do highlight all of our strengths. Those are not surprises to us. We definitely are proud of what we've accomplished, especially with the early interventions in the elementary and a lot of the stuff that we're doing proactively to, work things through. My concern more is their repetitive concentration on the areas of strength that they feel that we need to, not strength, opportunity that we need to work on. And in looking and reading the comprehensive report, the fact that 82.8% increase in school choice in 5 years, that's huge. And that they fail to think that we're offering higher order thinking on a broad scale when then they do mention that we do have the innovative educational programs, especially at the high school with the IB and, in the upper grades with the global ed and things like that. And I know that we have those great opportunities, but my question is, why would they think that we're not offering higher order thinking for them to have repetitively mentioned that as a growth opportunity for us, as well as they mentioned several times the absent, as is there, as is posted there, the recommendations on working on the consistent absences. But the school choice number, 82.8% increase in 5 years. I know that we are working on finding out, reasons why people are leaving and working to you know, help people see the wonderful things that they saw in our strengths. But that to see that in an actual percentage from DESE is just, was really shocking to me.
How quickly are you able to bring up the DESE information on our numbers to see back to around 2012, our attendance? If it's going to be a while, then
It was in the other
It
report.
goes back
was
to
like-
2014 in here.
oh, it doesn't go any further than that
I think it does.
on DESE?
Oh, I didn't look at.
Wasn't it
I'm just
over-
looking at this.
And I just bring that up because so you know, Miss Rossi brought up the, you know, people leaving and school choice and what have you, and I was here for that first one, you know, in 2012.
Were you on the school committee too?
Yeah.
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 That's rough.
Yeah, right. There you go. Rough. Yeah. So that was a dark time. That was when the exodus started, and that was when we had, like, you know, the school committee had like 4 or 5 articles on the ballot for, you know, overrides and everything. They all failed miserably. We couldn't even get a feasibility study for the minor forest school in those days. The town just didn't support it. You know, so the schools and the town have come a long way, bless you. So if you want to look at those numbers, if you ever have the chance, that's exactly when you'll see it just like a cliff.
Yeah.
It just drops like around 2012, 2013, when parents just realized the town wasn't supporting the schools, and it was going to take a lot. It was going to get worse before it got better, and it's later now, and we're doing a lot better, I think. I had a question. Were you done, Ms. Rossi?
Yeah.
Did you want, I can answer the higher order thinking skills?
Yes.
I think, you know, it would depend on what classes they observed. And I think that's, depending on what was going on in the class, it might not have shown the higher order.
But they mentioned it several times and they saw 93 classes. So
Right.
for it to have been mentioned consistently among 93 classes, which, you know, the fact that they said that they were never able to get 93 classes, and then they were, you know, in our district, which is a plus that we were able to help them navigate it, but for them to find that we're not offering higher order thinking.
That's not what they said in that report.
And under their recommendations that
You know,
for,
that we need to offer more opportunity, but overall, the percentage at each school indicates, particularly at the middle school, that they were over 80% in that criteria, and the high school was higher than it was in 2012, and the elementary, which they weren't nearly there as much as they were at the middle and the high school, is working toward it, but the percentages overall are greater than what they've ever been, and it's clear that we're working toward a goal in that area. So,
I'm just looking for where I read it. Yeah, however, under instruction, the team observed 93 classes, but district-wide, climate was characterized by respectful behaviors, routines, tone, and discourse. However, in observed classes at the elementary and high school levels, more opportunities are needed for students to engage in instruction that challenges them to use higher-order thinking skills. Students need to participate in more discourse that promotes critical thinking.
correct.
Yep. And those are, we're working on those areas. We understand that.
Right, and that's why I prefaced what I had said about the challenges.
But
with
it's not
being-
that we're not offering it. It's not that we're not working toward it. It's not that we don't have a lot in place that's moving in that direction. So to say that it doesn't exist, I think it does exist. It's not nearly where we were imagine it and where it will be, but it's moving in the direction that we're happy about. So they're right. We do need to work on it. We should always work on it. I mean, forever, that should be part of what we do, is make school engaging to our children, right? So it's tough to manage that under the pressure that many of our teachers have been under to make the grade an MCAS. We're changing a complete culture that has been inundated with teaching to the test. You can't be critical and creative when you're trying to be maintain fidelity to a program step by step, and you're not able to engage our students. We are smashing that culture.
So that kind of gets back to where I was talking about how dark it was back then. The cuts were just, we had to keep cutting and cutting. And if it wasn't MCAS, it was getting cut.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, so it was awful. Like I said, so the whole relationship with the community and the town and everything.
Brutal.
So we had, I think it was 4 or 5 articles, separate articles on the ballot. And to get on the ballot, they have to be voted on by the selectmen to get on the ballot. And there were 2 selectmen that voted no. I mean, one of them didn't make it. I forget which one it was. I think it was the school buses or something. We need school buses. I'm talking, we had to put an article on just to get, school books. The high school was using a printer machine around the clock just to copy books, so kids had something,
It's tough.
Yeah, so, did you get everything you needed? Yeah.
Well, like I said, what I was saying, I'm more pointing out where they are. Like I said, I know we do have a lot of the positives, and they did have a lot of great things to say, but under specifically in challenges and areas for growth, in observed classrooms across the district, instruction did not consistently engage students in higher order thinking, promote meaningful student discourse about content and their thinking, and ensure that students were supported and challenged regardless of their learning needs. I know that we are taking strides and making changes, and that this was from 2018, and that this, within this last school year, we've made great strides in improving and changing the culture and trying to improve our perception throughout the community. And I'm not disregarding any of the work that's being done. All I've done is observe their observations and what stood out to me in the comprehensive report as staggering. That's what I was saying, not discounting what we've done, not discounting where we're at or where our goals are, but I was more concerned with how their concerns were voiced in their report and how I interpreted it and how I read it as a parent and as a school committee member and as a member of the community, how it looked to me reading it. Not to insult or add injury to anything that anyone has been doing, because I'm a huge proponent of everything that's going on in the school. I fully support the Wareham public schools and everything that they're doing. We have great administrators. We have great teachers that are engaged and want to teach our students. But the fact that these independent people came in and this was their observation, that was my concern, was their observation. So it's my observation of their observation that I'm bringing up in regards to the report.
I think it speaks to the point of just a constant need for professional development, and to have people gather more information, how we approach different students, how we present the information to students, so the student voice is heard, and student ownership. And so those are all things that we acknowledge and that we're working on. Did you?
No, just, are you done?
Yep.
Yeah, all right. So, just add some things to it. But before I continue, I'm confused about IB at the middle school. Are there any IB courses being taught at the middle school right now?
Well, it's middle years program.
So what's that?
So it's essentially a part of IB. It's the middle years program through IB, and we've been training since 2015. We started with the middle school initially, and then Mr. Palladino went to a training that July, and he was really excited about the possibility, and so we started with the diploma program as well after we had already started to train the middle school people.
But in the middle school, is there an IB math, an IB English?
No, there are interdisciplinary units that have been established with the IB template or the curriculum template that's a common template across the district that includes an understanding by design as well as an IB component in that template. And within those courses, they've developed many units of instruction that are IB-like. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Would that be what Ms. Tabor had presented several months back to the school committee about
Yeah,
what
Project
she had
Lead
gone
the Way.
through? Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Andrea Erickson has done some fabulous work in art with IB. She's been to training. Lisa Breeze in English has done some phenomenal units. Bonnie Lasorsa is engaged highly. Sue Tabor. They have their meetings with staff, and they've developed these units, and the units are connected so that when kids do go, and the IB middle years is grades 6 through 10, but we've got units down to grade K, but I mean, kindergarten, we have units all the way down there using the same template. So the idea is to promote that kind of pedagogy in all areas of what we do
Okay.
through curriculum.
Okay. So now into the review. I thought this sentence was kind of comical. I think the first one. So Wareham is a district in southeastern Massachusetts that is well resourced and has had consistent school and central office leadership. Do you think we're well resourced?
No. The person that came with the financial piece, she had been a business manager, and she told us we had lots of money, and we just kept looking and thinking, I'm not sure what she's talking about. So we had some difference of opinion.
Yeah. Oh boy. So anyway, all right. The chronic rates of absence. What's going on there?
Oh, the Department of Education is obsessed right now with chronic absenteeism.
Well,
That's all they talk about.
17.9%.
And it points out that 6th, 7th, and 9th grade are the highest rates.
Yeah, and we can control that. Because I just want to know how we're supposed to change that or control it.
Oh, I see what you.
Right?
Well,
Just like choice, I'm not in everybody's head. Like, do you know what I'm saying? There are certain things that we can control what we do every day within our schools to try to make it the best experience for students. That's our goal every single day. But if a child is not brought to school and they don't get on the bus,
well, hold on. So
I don't know what to say about that.
yeah. Well, I think we can have something to say. I think. I wonder what the impact has been on the reduced busing. I wonder if that's impacting it.
We looked at it, and we really didn't see much of a change.
Because we're still required for the little ones anyway.
Yeah.
And
Under 6th grade. What grades is it? Yeah, under
6th,
6th, right?
7th, and 9th.
Right, but she's asking what the requirement is that we have to bus up till 6th, correct?
Right, but we bus, I believe,
Well,
up to
we bus all
8.
grades,
Yeah,
but
we
we
bus
do it
them all.
within a limited mileage now. We used to do everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and we just had to. I mean, that's just what it came to. But I just wondered if that had any impact on it. And then you're saying, no, not really.
No, we also have, we've been starting to send people into students' homes, social workers. We've been trying to network with kids, why they're not coming to school. There's been a lot more reach out that we've been able to do this year. So we're making every effort to improve that. If it gets to a certain point, unfortunately, we go to the court system and
They
try
don't
to use that to help us.
Ms. Spear.
No, is there, so 9th grade, it says, it's almost 30%. Is it the difference between 8th to 9th? Like, what is there? It goes, 7th grade is 23.2, and then it goes to 9th grade at 29.9. Is there a thought of 30%?
Right. Well, one of the things that we're looking at are the attendance rates at 9th grade, as well as their grades, what they're earning. And so we've started pulling the data and doing some in-depth digging in to why we're seeing some of the things that we're seeing. So that's something we can come back with you in the fall and share what we're finding.
Ms. Rossi.
So on the research and the reaching out that the administrators are doing on the absences, do we have a breakdown of the majority of reasons? Is it illness? Is it family issue? Like, is there just a way that we can see across the district where the disconnect is, or what the reasons we're getting are, so that we can put it into, like, whether they're just actually just, true and just not coming because of, for whatever reason, or if it's medical, or if it's a transportation issue. Is there a way that we can take that information, if you are reaching out, and put that into, sort of like kind of the charts that, or the graphs that, were presented in that kind of manner earlier, so that we can see out of that percentage of absenteeism, where the reason, so we know what resources to direct in what area.
Yeah, we're, as we dig into, we're looking at what are the commonalities, what are things in our control, what are not in our control, and we certainly would include that in when we share it.
Okay. And this I found kind of interesting too. They're saying about the suspensions. They're saying that we shouldn't rely on suspensions as a response. Don't rely like too much on suspensions as a response to misconduct. Like what else? Like what else can we do?
Well, would you like to?
So I think I'll speak on our behalf. I'll speak on all the principals' behalf. Is that we do a lot of restorative practice. I mean, how do you best learn your lesson? But if you do an injustice, is to have a child respond to it, whether it's writing or making the phone call to a parent or speaking to the teacher. So we have been very creative in our disciplinary process at DECUS because discipline. It's an opportunity to learn, right? Children make a mistake, they've got to fix it. So every day we say that. I make a mistake, you fix it. All of us do it. All of us make mistakes, purposefully, not purposefully, but our job is to own up to them. So I think at DECUS, what we do is a lot of restorative justice.
Do you remember Mr. Adams?
Yes,
Yeah.
I still am friendly with Mr. Adams.
Yeah.
I saw him recently.
I
at a-
remember way back, obviously, Mr. Adams and Miss Panarisi, they were going to have suspensions or after school detention with them. Like they did the detention.
We do detentions, we do. So, and that is, it can be a time like, okay, so you've taken this time, you've got to make up this time, right? But, so you think about suspensions, a kid who skips school, it doesn't make sense to suspend them, right? Should that be a disciplinary action? That doesn't make sense because if they're skipping school, they don't want to be at school. So why suspend them for that type of, right?
Yeah.
Discipline. It doesn't make sense. So I think when a child makes a mistake, it's our job to look at the mistake and to see how the child can learn from the mistake so the mistake doesn't happen again.
I just thought it was an interesting approach that the detention would be with the principal and vice principal.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we still do it today.
Okay. All right.
And I think the other thing is we've added more social workers, behaviorists, et cetera, because many times students act out, there's a reason why.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to us to help unpack why and come up with a solution, because when it's punitive, we never get to why. And we need to get to that question.
And it's much better, obviously much better. I just want to leave on the high note, and I loved how they said that the morale is high at the schools, and I remember which meeting it was, but you guys had your surveys and everything, and it's reflected there too. Yeah, so good work, really, everybody.
Thank you. And we've been invited to come to the Board of Selectmen and present as well.
Oh, awesome.
So we will be doing that in the near future.
Oh, great. Yeah, we'll be there. Any more questions on okay, so moving on to acceptance of gifts.
Okay. I would recommend the following acceptance of the following gifts: Curriculum Leadership Center project grant of $992.82 for the project Drums Alive for Carol Welburn at the DECUS School. Healthy Start grant of $500 to Minot Forest to help support the educational success of the whole child. Ohio Pile Prince Incorporated royalty check of $41.35 based on the sale of spiritware to the high school. Your Cause corporate employee giving program of $4 to the high school. A-plus rewards Stop and Shop of $486.69 to the high school. I would ask acceptance of all the gifts.
Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second? Okay. Any further discussion? I just want to say thank you as always. This is one of the best parts of the meeting, and it's really helpful. So with that, I'll take a vote to approve. Yeas? Yay. Nays? Abstains? Passes 4-0-0. So, moving on to vote on collective bargaining agreements. First one is bus drivers, and second is secretaries.
Okay. Earlier, we had gone through the tentative agreements. The bus drivers have voted, and they did ratify. Just to briefly review, the where's my bus drivers? Right here. Oh, I thought it was. Do you have, did I lose that one? No, I'm just looking at, so I can say the percentages. Is it? I lost my contract.
See when that happens. It wasn't in what I gave you, was it, Michelle?
Wait, all right, let me see.
That's going to be
Oh,
helpful.
you got it? Oh, yeah, right.
April. She's got it.
You got it? Sure.
I'll leave that there.
Okay.
All right.
So what we did, thanks, Michelle. So what we did with the contract is we added the steps, we added and lengthened the number of steps people could take, and then we went to a longevity payment as well. So it was 1-1-1, and then the difference between the steps was 2%.
And that's consistent across all the steps, right? Where there probably were gaps before that, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So I would ask the committee if they have questions, be happy to answer that. If not, I would ask you to please ratify.
All right, so we vetted this quite a bit in executive session, but if anyone else has something they want to say at this time, they can. All right, so seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
A second?
Second it.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes 4-0-0.
And so tonight, also the secretarial contract, I would also point out that it went to Unit D, and it's now affiliated with the Wareham Educational Association. This contract is a 3-year contract. However, we negotiated at a year in the rear. So we should have started last year, so it's really retro. So this will be a 3-year till 2021.
And we get to do it again.
Mm-hmm. So if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Just want to point out, I'm happy to see we have a couple of secretaries here tonight from the unit. Welcome. And again, so we did vet this quite a bit in executive session. If anyone wants to discuss it any further, you can. All right, so seeing none, have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes 4-0-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, report of the superintendent.
Okay. With the bill warrants, then I would like to ask you to please approve what's listed.
Do I have a motion to, oh.
As of 6:20?
We switched,
Oh, shoot.
maybe not. You know what, here,
Oh, no, you,
we got them. All right, so payroll also ending on 6/15/19 in the amount of $149,776.18. And bill warrant on June 27th in the amount of $305,197.61. So I'd ask you to please approve all that are listed plus the other two.
all right. And just to clarify, so there might be some confusion tonight because I went to get my packet printed out, but I ended up getting the superintendent's. So that might be why some stuff is shuffling around here. Anyway, so that said, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
Oh, God bless you. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 400.
Okay. I'd also share with the committee, if you recall, you voted to make sure that everybody would be paid minimum wage. And as we're reflecting on our salaries for the upcoming years, in keeping with that, then we will be raising permanent intermittent subs to $97 a day. Teachers will be $92 a day. Paras will be $87 a day. Nurses will be $25, an hour. And secretaries, custodians, cafeteria workers, bus monitors will be $12 an hour, and bus drivers would be $23.12 an hour. So that keeps us in the policy of making sure that we've maintained minimum wage.
But the bus drivers weren't impacted by that, right?
Subs.
The subs. All right. And the per day rates, what were they before, do you know?
Permanent intermittent subs, 85. 97.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, is that it?
That's it.
Okay, so, all right. Report of the school committee. Chair to announce executive minutes appropriate for release. That's me. All right, so I just got to announce that we don't need a vote. I'm just going to announce that they're going to be released. All right, so that's February 7th, 2018, April 25th, 2018, September 6th, 2018, and September 20th, 2018. And as I was reading, it was interesting to see Mr. Sweat name pop up there. It was just wanted to shout out and say thank him for his time that he spent there, helping us with the executive session. Any other business?
Actually, I do have one question I wish I had asked.
Okay.
Can I do that?
No.
I-
No.
So on the data, it would also, the K to 4 data, it would also be nice to see how it continues on into the middle school as well, and even high school if that's possible.
You
Okay.
can do it to grade 5, because we don't do the same assessments.
Okay, but
So-
what do you do after 5?
Well, we've been doing their own common assessments, so they have a whole system set up. Each department chair creates their common assessments based on power standards, and they go in and they do, like math, just every 2 weeks, they do an assessment of the learning, and then at the end of unit, they do end of unit tests. We do common writing, grades K through out, so those common writing assessments are done, and they're graded by a group of teachers, not the teacher of the student right? So we have systems that have been put in place, but it's not the same measure, which makes it difficult to,
compare.
To
But at
compare.
least you could see how they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
on those assessments. And then even make the comparison to, if they do well on that assessment, how do they do on the MCAS?
yes, and
You know,
we're just going to integrate, I don't know if you're familiar with NUIA map growth. So at the middle school, we are going to integrate NUIA math, English, and science map growth this coming year, which is a big endeavor, but I think it will be really exciting. And then we're also going to use another software, and I never get the name right because it has Eduplastic or something like that. It's Eduplasty or something. I call it plastic because it sounds like plastic, but it basically, what it will do is it will help teachers to create assessments within that system, and then it compares to standards. So what's a little bit difficult is that there are diagnostics for skills and then there are diagnostics for standards, and they're two different sets of criteria when you look at measuring skill. And we're doing NUIA oral reading fluency because we found a more efficient way with technology to help gather data without stressing the system, which currently it kind of does, right? Because we have a team go in, the teachers themselves don't do the assessment because we want it to be unbiased. So we have a new system coming in through NUIA as well for grades K and 1 that connects to a voice recognition system. And the kids just go on, and in 20 minutes, we can find out what's taking us months to find out now with the one-on-one testing. So we're getting to a point now where we're able to know enough about what we're looking for effectively to figure out what it is we need. We're really, really concerned about skills initially,
Right.
because they're absolutely necessary. You have to have them. There's no question about it. So when they're little, we're looking at skills. As they get older, we want to make sure that those transition to standards. So we'll have a better, I think, a more robust and data to look at and make those connections. And right now, I just do it myself with colored pens, like literally nerd-like. But, it's making those connections and then trying to do the right thing, so.
Good, thank you.
All right, so I should have actually mentioned this during good news, I think, but we have the proclamation from the selectmen that was read by Mr. Trapiano at the graduation, signed by all the selectmen. It's really nice looking, and I think they're gonna probably put this in the showcase at the high school, where the trophies are and stuff. So that's really nice of them. That was great. Anyone else? All right. So this is our last meeting until August, unless something comes up. But I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. I also wanted to point out I was originally opposed to having the table changed and such, but I'm really happy that we have the assistant superintendent here at the table. She's actually brought a lot of value here, and it makes things easier. Yeah, no, thank you. And that's it, I guess. Motion to adjourn.
Executive session.
Oh, shoot, thank you. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. So we have an executive session tonight, and we're gonna adjourn and go into executive session, and for the purposes of litigation, and chapter 30A, section 21(3), and to go over executive session minutes, but we're not gonna come back into public session afterwards. That's. Yeah, we'll come out to, yeah, but that's all we're gonna do. We're gonna come out to adjourn and no more business.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have a motion? Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call. So, Mary? April?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
And Lori's yes. So we are in executive session, so you have to